And there we go. Hello, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Welcome in. Hello. I hope we're having a good. Well, I usually say afternoon, but it is morning because we are actually going live. At almost. Well, it was almost 10 in the morning, but it had some delays IRL. So brief explanation as to why. Big ice storm is coming for my general location IRL, and I have no idea if I am going to lose power or not. So, we're going to talk about dinosaurs until we hit our normal limit, or my power goes out. So we will see. Hopefully I've beaten it by at least a few hours. So we'll see. Hello. New giant stegosaur just dropped. Really? I haven't seen that. Opinion on Meganura? Very cool. Creepy giant eagle-sized dragonfly. I say creepy because, well, Meganura, it being a dragonfly, implies that it was probably as successful as modern dragonflies, and modern dragonflies are like the most successful predators on the planet. They have a very, very high success rate. Is there a new stegosaurid that I didn't hear about? Not that I'm seeing, but I will go and take a look at some articles about that later on. But either way, really cool. Opinion on Saurophagonax? I think Saurophagonax, no matter what it ends up being, is going to be pretty cool. Allosaurus and Ax, which is the spiritual successor to Saurophagonax, because, well, you didn't lose the giant Allosaur. It's still right there. It's just called Allosaurus now. Really cool, really big predator for its time. Allosaurus and Ax was shockingly big compared to other Jurassic carnivores. Whereas I think it's bigger than like Torvosaurus gurnii, which is the largest. I think it's the largest theropod to walk across Europe, funnily enough. But yeah, I mean, if it's a sauropod as well, the sauropod will keep the name. However, if the sauropod material is identified as a sauropod that we already have described, then I think the name Saurophagonax will be, like, retired, unfortunately. So, yeah. Whoa, thank you, Dino Nerd, for the fireworks. I appreciate it. Hey, so there could have been any albino dinosaurs. Yes, I would say so. Because in the modern world, we have albino alligators, right? We have, I want to say is, but I don't know if the alligator has since passed on, but there was or is an alligator in the New Orleans aquarium that has been there since at least 2005 and is like albino. So there is a good chance that dinosaurs could have been leucistic, albino, melanistic. 100% possible. Any gaming streams soon? Maybe, but honestly, the games that I'm playing right now do not pertain to dinosaurs. So I don't know how interested my general audience would be with that. What's your most niche dino fact one you think others haven't heard of? Ooh, that's a good one. Most niche. Okay, so here's my issue, right? Because I've been told before by people IRL that I mention things that I think people know that people do not know, like the average everyday people don't know about this topic. So I don't know what technically classifies as niche anymore. Niche to like the average person would be that there is an animal called Concavenator, which is one of the smallest members of the Carcharodontosauridae family. And it is dated to the early Cretaceous of, I think, Spain. And interestingly enough, it has been found with quill nodules along its arms. So it has like evidence that it had like feathers, or at least like feather-like structures, maybe quills, and stuff like that. to a wider group, I'd say maybe the Dilophosaurus butt print thing, because like I didn't even know that until like a few weeks ago, and I found that really funny. So there's a Dilophosaurus butt print, or at least it's supposedly Dilophosaurus. It's from the general region of where Dilophosaurus is found, I think. And I think it's dated to the right time. But if it's not Dilophosaurus itself, it's an animal that seems to be, at least in terms of size and shape, it seems to be about or pretty closely related. So yeah. Is Yi a dino? Yes, the dinosaur Yichi is a dinosaur. And you know what? I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, because where is it? Hold on. Because I recently got... Oh, no, don't tell me. Oh, did I lose it? Did I forget to save it? Well, I had a Yichi avatar, but I think I forgot to save it. That is unfortunate. I will have to go and pick that back up. But Yichi's pretty cool. It's a little bird-like dinosaur that instead of having feathered wings, it has a wing membrane. And hey, by the way, I have a Yichi figure that you can buy, or at least I don't have it. You can go buy it at biobuildstudios.com. They sell a ton of different really cool fossil replicas, and I, as well as Dino Guy and Paleo Pizza, got to select a dinosaur for them to build as a kit, and we chose Yichi. So you can go and get yourself a little bat bird if you want. So yeah. How come dinosaurs aren't with us anymore? One, they are, because we have birds. Birds are the only lineage of dinosaurs left. They are an extension of the theropod group, which is the same group that gives us things like Velociraptor and stuff like that. In fact, and secondly, Big Rock. Big Rock slammed into Earth and boom, right? And that caused like super, super bad extinction level stuff going on. But what a lot of people don't know is that not all birds did survive, because there was a ton of different groups of birds that were around during the Cretaceous when the asteroid struck. What's interesting is that there were some birds that still had teeth, and those birds didn't survive. And that's why all birds alive today don't have teeth, or they at least don't have true dental structures, right? Some birds have developed keratinous like barbs on their tongues and on like in the inside of their throats, but those are not true dental structures, again, because they're made of keratin and stuff like that. So yeah. And whoa, thank you, Connor Shaw, for the dinosaur. I appreciate it. Thank you, Marky Ark. Could you please talk about the debate if Spinosaurus could swim or not? Okay. So this is a pretty complicated debate, but thankfully, let me just, I do believe, where is he? Where be my Leviathan dinosaur? Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. That's why I'm not finding him. Here he is. Okay, so here's the thing. Spinosaurus is often depicted in modern media as mostly being in water, swimming. I accidentally hit my desk with my controller. Ignore that. Spinosaurus is depicted as staying near water and swimming. Here's the thing. We know Spinosaurus stayed near water. Spinosaurus has a lot of adaptations that suggest that a majority of its diet was made up of fish. Well, we're going to get into the whole thing of, like, are fish a real thing or not, but that's a whole different discussion. Anyway, we know this because Spinosaurus has a lot of adaptations for it. It has the higher set nostrils, so you'll see that the nostrils are right there in the center of the skull rather than being down by the end of the snout. Another thing is that they have really straight teeth. They have very, very conical teeth, which is the kind of teeth that you want when you are hunting fish. As for the debate on whether it could swim, This is a very long and complicated debate that is still somewhat ongoing, but kind of has a lot of people split, I'd say maybe 70-30 down the middle, or, well, adjacent middle. Spinosaurus's bones are very weird. They are very, very dense. And density in the bone, the density of that level is common among animals that adapt for an aquatic life. Here's the thing. Of specific land animals that you could probably associate with Spinosaurus, at least in terms of like similar niches, or maybe that's not a good way of saying that. Essentially, let's think of a hippo. A hippo's really big, right? They're not fat, by the way. All of that is muscle. But they have really dense bones, and those dense bones don't allow them to swim. Hippos can't really swim. Instead, they kind of just float along the bottom of, they mostly just kind of wander and walk on the bottom of rivers and stuff like that. So that, also with the fact that this giant sail on its back is probably not helping it stabilize in the water, and also, by the way, because whenever I talk about this and I say that I don't think Spinosaurus was a good swimmer, people always say, but it had the giant tail. It had the tail to swim through water. No, it didn't. That tail is not built for swimming. Tails that are adapted for swimming have a tail fluke. Look at sharks, whales, seals. Anything that is swimming for most of the time has a tail fluke. Instead, you get this. A tail that is mostly like parallel to itself and even across the board throughout most of the structure. It's very similar to basilisk lizards, which use their tails for display. So yeah, that's the debate. But yeah, how long does fossilization take? Like, were there any dinosaurs fossils when there were still dinosaurs? Yes, there were. Okay, fossilization takes a few, at its fastest, a few thousand years, at its slowest, millions of years. There's a lot of different variations that go into it, because you have the variation of, well, how long is it going to take for this environment to break down the soft tissue? How long is it going to take the environment to break down the harder things like bone? How quickly does the sediment pour in to create the fossil? There's a lot of different factors that go into that. But as for the question of were there dinosaur fossils when dinosaurs were around? Yes, absolutely yes. To put this into perspective, Tyrannosaurus rex shows up in the fossil record 68 million years ago. They go extinct 66 million years ago. T-Rex lived on this planet as a species for 2 million years. And this was something that just blew my mind when someone told me this. The two most, I would argue, the two most famous T-Rexes are Sue and Scotty. Scotty was fossilized in the ground when Sue was walking around. Sue was alive and kicking while Scotty was fossilized. It's either that way or it's the other way around. I forget exactly which one is dated to where and which one's younger than the other. But yes, there were tons, probably more dinosaur fossils on Earth when the dinosaurs themselves were alive than there are today, which is nuts. Yeah. Purosaurus, can you talk about it? Purosaurus is this absolutely gigantic caiman from South America during the Cenozoic, sometime in the Cenozoic. I don't exactly remember when, unfortunately. However, I will say this. It is probably the largest crocodilian to ever live. And before anyone mentions Sarcosuchus or Deinosuchus, those aren't crocodilians. At least Deinosuchus isn't a crocodilian anymore. We used to think Deinosuchus was an alligatoroid. It is not. It has since been pushed out of the crocodilian group, because here's the thing, a lot of people, when they talk about how old certain things are, they never really mention this, but crocodilians, true crocodilians like the ones we have today, only really show up during the late Cretaceous. Everything that comes before that is a crocodiliform. or a crocodilomorph, right? So, yeah, very cool animals, though. Thoughts on Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus? And yes, you can say it both ways. I tend to say it as Giganotosaurus because that's how the person who named it called it. But then again, you can call it Giganotosaurus because the guy who named it, he spoke Spanish, so they pronounce it differently. Anyway, I think it's really cool. I do believe there was some material that came out not too long ago. I think it was last year. I think Giga's a little shorter than we thought it was initially, but otherwise really cool animal. I think the larger it really is funny to me because, like, I'm not a huge Carcharodontosaurus kind of guy, which is the family Giga belongs to, but I do think they're really cool. However, if you lined up Carcharodontosaurus, Tyrannotitan, Mapusaurus, and Giga side by side with one another and made them all the same size, I would not be able to tell which one was which. And now I can point out Acrocanthosaurus is cool because that is a very characteristically distinguished Carcharodontosaurid because it has the higher spines and that hump. Every other large Carcharodontosaurid, nope, I can't do it. But yeah. Do you think we'll ever be able to recreate the feather patterns? Yes, because what's very interesting about certain fossilization or certain fossils that we have is that I think there was one fossil that was really well preserved and it had a feather on it. And what was interesting is that you could see that there was a difference in maybe not color but shade, right? That sounds like they're the same thing. They're really not because pigment and like color shading is a bit different. But they could tell that like certain parts of the feather were darker and other parts were lighter. So in some aspects, there are dinosaurs that we do know like the precise color of and what their patterns look like, and that's very cool. Sinosauropteryx is a good one. We know that guy was just running around very, very orange-ish, and had like the big bushy tail. So in some aspects, yes, there will be some dinosaurs that will figure out the feather patterns and stuff like that of but unfortunately for like by and large with like a lot of dinosaurs that probably won't be possible because, well, there are some dinosaurs that are only really known from like handfuls of specimens. Like, have you ever seen the joke of like most complete Spinosaur and it's like a small fraction of the jaw or maybe a couple of teeth? There are some dinosaurs that are legitimately only known from stuff like that. And it's heartbreaking, but, you know. Why is T-Rex king? T-Rex is the king of the dinosaurs because of when it was found and the fact that it still reigns today. T-Rex was found and kind of immortalized as like this giant carnivore ruler of the dinosaurs. There was no other carnivore that was bigger or badder than T-Rex. And to this day, while T-Rex has probably lost its throne in terms of height and in terms of length, it is still the heaviest terrestrial carnivore to ever walk on the surface of this planet. So T-Rex has kind of just gained this notoriety of being like this insane animal when it was found, and it's still crazy even to this day. And here's the wild thing, we're still learning about it. T-Rex is one of the most well-researched dinosaurs to ever exist, and we're learning even more about it because of the validity of another dinosaur called Nanotyrannus. We're just now finding out that T-Rex could live into its 50s. The oldest estimate for T-Rex individuals to get to before like the Nanotyrannus papers came out was maybe 30 if they were lucky. So that's just insane. So yeah. I am catching up with chat. But also with the tail thingy for Spinosaurids, if it could swim like crocodiles swim, with no fluke. Here's the issue with that. Crocodiles float. Spino can't. Spino's dense bones are going to make it sink. Crocodiles can float. But yeah. In my opinion, Spino is overrated. Hey, you know, all of this is completely subjective. If you think that, hey, that's fine. I think Spinosaurus is super cool because it is an example of speciation, specialization on the macro level. Because you have to understand, this is an animal that converged onto the niche of a heron. And it is the size of an elephant. It is a heron the size of an elephant. And that is insane. I think it's really cool because of that specialization. How long have you been doing this? I've been holding Dino class for about 1.5 years now. The first Dino class ever was July 11th, 2024, but as of today, we've been live for about 21 minutes. Yeah. Would Rex beat Spino? Probably yes. I will give you a very simple equation to go by when it comes to who beats who in terms of dinosaur fights, so that you can answer who beats who in a dinosaur fight. It's typically whoever weighs more. It's typically how it goes. 8 times out of 10, 7, 8 times out of 10, that's typically how that goes. So yeah. Do you think dinosaurs would evolve human-like consciousness and watch which dino would? There is a lot of things that probably contributed to the advancement of human consciousness. I know there's a recent thing over our gut microbiome and how our diet played into the development of, like, you know, our current consciousness. Could a dinosaur do that? I suppose it's not impossible. Would they think exactly like us? Probably not. I will also say, I say this every time I get the chance to. If a dinosaur ever did develop human-like consciousness, that does not mean they would develop a human-like body. And if I had to put a bet on any specific dinosaur that would develop higher consciousness, it would either be a troodontid or modern corvids. Whatever corvid that may or may not be. Because modern corvids are very smart. Maybe leave them alone for a few million years, see what happens, you know? Is it possible for our perceptions of dinosaurs are wrong, like bunny skeletons? So, here's the thing about that. And I think this is very important for people to understand. I am very quickly going to change dinosaur. We're going to keep with the Spinosaurid thing, and we're going to go with Irritator for a little bit. The anatomy of mammals and the anatomy of reptiles are very, very different. And when you look at a mammal skeleton, let's say a horse, or maybe an elephant or a hippo, right? You look at the skeletons of these animals and you're like, wow, I would have no idea that it looks the way that it does if I had just seen the skull of it. And that's a uniquely mammal thing for the most part from what we understand, because go look at the skull of a crocodile. It looks like the head of a crocodile. Go look at the head of a bird. Best one I could tell you, go look at a toucan. Go look at a toucan skeleton. The beak is just right there. So it's that difference in anatomy that really kind of tells us that, yeah, maybe there are certain things that we perceive about dinosaurs, right, that are wrong. But to give you an example of a missing thing that we just discovered, a great example of this, by the way, is the recent paper on Edmontosaurus. The 2 recent papers on the, one on the Edmontosaurus mummies, the other one on the Edmontosaurus that is not given to either of the current recognized species. They're the two mummies showed that there was a soft tissue sail that ran down their backs, which isn't technically a sail, but it is this soft tissue structure that ran down their backs. And the other paper showed that even without a bone indicating the presence of a crest, they could have had a fleshy comb-like crest on their head. Now, here's the thing. That's a very uniquely dinosaur thing. So you're not going to end up with the same thing where, like, you're reconstructing a hippo and it looks like some kind of monster, right? There are things that are unique to dinosaurs that we probably won't know about until we find a specimen about it. But that's just kind of how that goes, you know? If you don't have evidence to support, like, say, I don't know, trunks on sauropods, no one's going to depict trunks on sauropods. By the way, that's not possible. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, there you go. We usually can see muscle anchors in bone. That is also correct. We can figure out the kind of muscular anatomy that some dinosaurs have based off of the attachment points that muscles have to bone. So yeah, I mean, that's a great way of seeing that. Is Parasaurolophus the only dinosaur we really know the voice of? Other than modern dinosaurs, i.e. birds, maybe kind of yes. But there's also Corythosaurus and Lambeosaurus that I think have also, like, they also have crest-like structures that possibly produce sounds as well. There was someone who made it, I talked about this last stream, there was someone who made an instrument out of a Lambeosaurus crest. Like, they 3D printed a Lambeosaurus crest and made an instrument out of it, and then you just blow air through it. There's a lot that those kinds of things can tell us about the way that they make sound. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that probably went into the sounds of these animals that we're not able to, like, synthesize at the moment. For example, there was probably soft tissue on the inside of the hollow bits of the crest. There was probably soft tissue around the outside, because again, with the Edmontosaurus comb thing, they probably had, like, fleshy crests instead of, like, the hardened crests that we're used to seeing. And any person that has ever played any kind of brass instrument ever will also tell you that getting any kind of moisture inside of an instrument will change how it sounds. I know, I played trumpet. There's a reason that those things have spit valves. So, kind of, sort of, yes. But yeah. This dinosaur name, can this specific dinosaur name outpower this? Oh, Lord. What family would the Jurassic World hybrids belong to if they would have their own family? Indoraptor would probably fall within the Megaraptorids. Indominus would probably be a tyrannosaur of some kind, but these guys would be very, very heavy outliers to their groups. Indoraptor does not have the same posture as Megaraptors. There's a ton of stuff going on with Indominus Rex that does not add up with the Tyrannosaur family, but, like, based off of what I know of its genome, it would probably end up as a Tyrannosaur of some kind. I don't know what's going on with Scorpius Rex. It's got the head of an Albertosaur and, like, the arms of a Megaraptor, so I'm not sure what to do with that thing. And then the rest of them are just no clue. But yeah. Talk about the Western horse. Oh, you mean the American horse? Okay, so if you mean the American, like the native American horse, so for anyone who isn't super into horses, brief backstory. North America used to have native horses. North America has wild horses today. But the thing about wild horses today is that they are descendants of European horses. North America has no native horse population. Now, here's the thing. They used to. However, the native horses to North America were outcompeted by other hoofed animals like deer and moose and elk. And really, they just kind of got outcompeted in the region. And while up until, European settlers started moving their horses into the continent, the land bridge that connected Russia and Alaska didn't reappear, so horses couldn't migrate back into North America. The closest thing to the North American horse that we have today would probably be the Mongolian horse. Now, I'm not a huge horse person. I just know a lot about this because, well, I knew someone back in high school who was really into horses, and they taught me all of this stuff. So it's really fascinating. But yeah. North America used to have native horses. We also used to have camels. North America used to have camels for some reason. So yeah. Talk about why Irritator is named Irritator. Irritator is named Irritator because its original material was smuggled out of Brazil, and the people who smuggled it out of Brazil attached a lot of rock to it. So when paleontologists finally got their hands on the specimen, they had to chip away at they had to figure out what was and what wasn't fossil material, and it was very irritating and challenging. So they named it Irritator Challengeri, or Irritator Challengeri. So yeah, that's why Irritator got its name. Could you talk about Acrocanthosaurus? How smart and scary were Utah raptors? Utah raptors were... I don't know if there is any study on their intelligence, but if I had to assume, they probably were among the smarter individuals of the Dromaeosauridae. Probably nothing compared to troodontids. But as far as I know, I can't say definitively how smart they were. Acro, on the other hand, Acrocanthosaurus is known from a handful of different fossil formations. Cedar Mountain Formation, same one that Utah Raptor comes from, but it did not coexist with Utah Raptor. The Twin Mountains Formation and stuff like that. Acro is the second largest genus of carnivorous theropod to walk across North America. It is second only to the genus of Tyrannosaurus. And Acro's really, really neat. So the name means high-spined reptile. It's found in Utah, Texas, and Oklahoma. And it is... okay, actually, here, hold on. This is my favorite thing to say about Acrocanthosaurus, and I'll show you Acro real quick. So who here, and I'm asking you guys this, so who here has seen that one image of, like, Spinosaurus, but Spinosaurus' sail is actually an attachment point for muscle, like a bison's is, right? I'm sure anyone who has frequented the paleosphere has probably seen that image, right? Okay, here's the thing. That's not possible for Spinosaurus due to how much space there is between the back of Spinosaurus' skull and the beginning of the large neural spines on Spinosaurus' sail. However, you want to see an animal that did have a hump for large muscle attachments to its skull? It's this guy. It's Acro. Look at that hump. Look at the hump on the neck. There are these raised neural spines that, like, I'll bend down so you can see how raised against the back this is, but there is this kind of raised sail structure. That is what Acro is. Acro is that. It's not Spinosaurus. So yeah. Yeah. Was Barosaurus the largest Diplodocidae? I'm not actually sure. I want to say yes, but let me check. Hold on. Diplo. Is it Barosaurus? Oh, no, sorry. I'm stupid. How did I forget this? No, it's Supersaurus. Supersaurus is the longest dinosaur ever, but I do believe it's bigger than Barosaurus. So yeah, it is Supersaurus. Talk about how huge Suchomimus actually is. Yeah, Suchomimus is huge. It's the tallest Spinosaurid. Not a lot of people know that because, like, how you measure dinosaurs is based off of, like, when you're measuring height with dinosaurs, you measure how high off the ground their hip is and not their back. So Suchomimus is actually the tallest member of the Spinosaurid family, because Spinosaurus has, like, the reduced back limbs. Sucho is as big, or at least as tall as some specimens of T-Rex. So yeah, that's like it's super neat. So yeah. Were comps like Nathan some of the smallest dinosaurs? For their time, yes. However, they're outbeat by, in terms of smallest, by hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are among the smallest, and I have to say this because somehow I am not sure how people misunderstand this. But when I say hummingbirds are the smallest dinosaurs, that does not mean hummingbirds have existed forever and everything comes from hummingbirds. I have never claimed that. However, people seem to think I have, and I don't get why. But hummingbirds are the smallest dinosaurs to ever exist. So, yeah. You talk about the dromaeosaurs or any type of pack hunters. I love them. Well, you're going to be sorely disappointed because we have actually no evidence of dromaeosaurs being pack hunters. That's kind of just something that's widely accepted speculation. In fact, we don't really have evidence of any dinosaur being a pack hunter. Pack hunting is relatively rare in nature. And to assume that it was present in certain dinosaurs is probably not smart. You could have maybe pairs that were like mating pairs, who would go out and hunt together. But like even looking at modern birds today with how they do things as bonded pairs, you'll have one that stays at the nest and the other one will go out to hunt. And then the one that goes out to hunt will bring back food. And then the other one will leave the nest and then they trade places. But dromaeosaurs are pretty cool. They are relatively close to modern birds in terms of like genetics and stuff like that. They are, the ones that are very, very feathery and stuff like that. Very cool animals. My personal favorite is Utah Raptor. I know, how original, right? The largest of the family is my favorite. But, if you've been around long enough, if you've been hanging out here with me and my community for a while, you'll know that my old logo was actually a Utah Raptor. So, yeah. Did dinosaurs have powers like the Dilophosaurus spitting in Jurassic Park? Not that we can tell, no. Dilophosaurus probably did not have venom. It probably also didn't have neck frills. There are certain things that we can absolutely tell about dinosaurs, such as like weaponry, like horns, spikes, club tails, stuff like that. But in terms of like spitting venom and being poisonous, there's no real evidence to support that. There was I think there was Spinosauropteryx or something like that. No, it wasn't Sino. It was some kind of troodontid that in one documentary they implied that it was venomous, and that is not the case. There is no evidence of venom on any dinosaur aside from any modern bird that might happen to be venomous, if there is one. I am completely blanking on if there is a modern bird that is venomous. So, hey, feel free to look that up for yourself. But yeah. Why is a T-Rex teaching me, dog? Well, the reason I'm teaching you is because this is not a T-Rex. And if you didn't know that, you should probably sit down because this is Acrocanthosaurus atokensis, the high-spined reptile of Oklahoma, Utah, and Texas. Also because I like it. Could Irritator split its jaw like Shin Godzilla? How is it Ember from Jurassic World Rebirth? Ember's way too huge. I'll say that. Now, in terms of like bulk, yeah, it's pretty good. But Irritator could not split its jaw like Shin Godzilla. When the paper came out that talked about Irritator splitting its jaw, there were a lot of people that thought that it split its jaw open like the Spinosaurus from the Isle, or like a snake can. That is not the case. There was more than likely a connection point at the chin that would prevent the jaw from splitting open like that. Instead, what you want to think of when you think of Irritator splitting its jaw open is when a pelican opens its mouth. You ever notice that the back of the pelican's mouth splits open to the side? It's exactly like that. That is exactly what it's like. So yeah. Yeah. I am going to have you ever played Ark Survival Evolved? I have. I played it a lot when I was in high school, middle school, stuff like that. Don't take that game as paleo accurate. Like, it's not even close. I urge you, please, no. It's not even. Well, the Carnotaurus is pretty good. Admittedly, it's a little big, but the Carnotaurus is pretty decent. I'll give it that. But yeah, Stego. That is a name I do not know. No had 4 tusks rather than 2. Is it a type of giant boar? Because I'm going to Google this animal because I have never heard of this thing before. Stegotrachodon. Ah, yes, the giant oh, it's a giant elephant relative. I see. Lived during the late Miocene to early Pliocene in Africa. Very cool. Oh no, Stegotetrabelodon. Okay. I'm probably mispronouncing that as well. But very cool animal. Checking, getting up to, is Majungasaurus cannibal? Yes, there is evidence that Majungasaurus is a cannibal. However, it's very, 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 very important that you remember that exclusive cannibalization in a species is not possible lest the species itself go extinct. And as we know, Majungasaurus was probably still kicking around by the time the end Cretaceous mass extinction event hit 66 million years ago. But yeah. Have you ever played the Isle? Yes. I'm not a huge fan of the Isle, though. It's okay. I like it. I mean, I see why people enjoy it. I don't. I much prefer the kind of arcadey feel of Path of Titans, because Path of Titans can feel very realistic and also very arcadey. And I like that. I like that you can kind of like switch between that. So yeah. What do I think of the rebirth Spinosaurus? They're okay. I don't think they're the best, but I also don't think they're the worst. But either way, I think they're still pretty cool. Let's go with this guy. I did see someone asking if I liked Eutyrannus, and yes, I do like Eutyrannus. Eutyrannus is my second favorite dinosaur of all time. My favorite dinosaur of all time is Nanooksaurus hoglundi, the Alaskan Tyrannosaur. Love that guy. But Eutyrannus is very, very cool. I did a video, or I remade a video on Eutyrannus not too long ago. So yeah. Oh God. Not a Raptor's abusing the fact that he's an admin. For the snowstorm. I think I do, Raptor. I think I do, not a Raptor. I think I have enough Dr. Pepper to last me. By the way, if you're coming in and you don't know what that means, hi, I live in a place that's getting hit by that huge snowstorm, and it's gonna like the brunt of it is hitting in like a few hours. So that's why stream's early today, if you were wondering. So yeah. What is my favorite ceratopsid? My favorite ceratopsid, I love to say this. My favorite ceratopsid is Pachyrhinosaurus because it is a member of the ceratopsian family, and that means the horned face, like the horned face reptiles. And it doesn't have a horn. Pachyrhinosaurus, like, here, hold on, I'll show you. If you've never seen Pachyrhinosaurus, first off, what a shame, because they're such a cool dinosaur. Here he is. Here he is. Here he is. You'll notice no horn on this guy. There's no horn on this guy. He's just kind of out here with this big old boss on his nose. And no, the horns on the frill don't count because those aren't horns. Those are something called epiccipitals. So they're their own thing. So yeah. But yeah. Did Ankylosaurus look more like Jurassic World or Path of Titans, the Anodontosaurus? Probably more like Path of Titans, because you don't get that kind of interlocking armor plate kind of look like you see with the Jurassic World Ankylosaurus, unless you're looking at notosaurs. Notosaurs have similar kinds of like armor that like is really tight knit and stuff like that, but not exactly like that, of course. But yeah. Thoughts on Dimetrodon? Very cool. It's one of our relatives, not a direct relative. But it's a cousin. I mean, well, technically everything's a cousin to us, you know, because we all come from the same original last common ancestor, Luca, last universal common ancestor. Yeah. Any info on the Great Dying Extinction event? I can tell you that it was long. And that's the thing that like sets the KT extinction apart from the rest of the mass extinction events, is that most other extinction events other than the KT extinction events were really, really long and drawn out. The Great Dying took place over the course of several million years. You start out with these like huge volcanic eruptions that raise the Earth's temperature. You have like this acid rain that rains down after a while, and you'll notice that like when you're looking into it, the fossil record shows that the Great Dying, in particular, you had these periods where it was really, really bad, and it got better, and then it was really bad, and then it got better, and then it does that song and dance for like a few million years until eventually it recovers and you enter the Triassic. And that is, and and you know, to go back on what I was saying about the KT extinction event, I want you to think about this. You're a paleontologist sometime in, let's say, the 1970s. You're a paleontologist in the 1970s. You're looking into the extinction events throughout Earth's history, and you see all of these extinction events like the Great Dying that took place over the course of several million years and were very long and drawn out. And then you get to the KT extinction event when all the dinosaurs died, and then suddenly everything dies, and then life continues. That's so weird. That is so strange, right? That's so strange. It was so fast. But yeah, the Great Dying was awful. Like 80% of all life, or 86% of all life on the planet died. And I think like the only place, I think like 90% of life on land died, and like 80% of life in the ocean died. So that's kind of like the median of it. But yeah. Would you rename the Jurassic World Rebirth Titanosaurus Argentinosaurus and the Jurassic World Rebirth Quetzal to Hatzegopteryx? Yes to both of them. I think that Quetzal looked a lot more like Hatz. Would it have been an accurate Hatzegopteryx? No. Would that Argentinosaurus be accurate? No. So, but you know, either way, I think changing the names to that would probably that would probably improve my gripes with that movie. But you know, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. How accurate is the Dreadnoughtus from Jurassic World Dominion? It's got elephant feet. Titanosaur or sauropods don't have elephant feet. Sauropods had toes. They had toes. So that's my only gripe. Other than that, I suppose maybe a change in posture, maybe shorten the tail just a tad, but other than that, it's pretty decent looking. Would prehistoric elephants joust like modern day elephants? I would say so, yeah. Well, I mean, that also depends on how elephant you want your elephant to look, right? Because if we're talking like Dinotherium, well, Dinotherium's tusks aren't exactly built for jousting. But if we want to talk about like Paleoloxodon, Paleoloxodon's got the right tusks for it, so probably did. So it just depends on how elephant your elephant is. Yeah. Running a Dinosaur Safari campaign. What dinosaurs should I throw at them next? If you're in a desert, I think the Mongolian Titanosaur would be really cool, because they're like, if you're doing like a D&D campaign thing, the Mongolian Titanosaur is not known by any binomial name. It is not described, right? And I think it's so cool. I love to say that there is a ghost hiding in the Gobi Desert because there is a giant titanosaur that lived out there, but we have no bones of it. We only have footprints of it. So you could really pull off some like false Hydra stuff with like the Mongolian titanosaur. That's my recommendation. Do a false Hydra titanosaur. So yeah. What generic you remove from the Indominus Rex to increase its what genetic components do we need to remove from the Indominus Rex to increase its congruency? I don't know, like the rest. Remove all of the Albertosaurid DNA and remove all of the Deinosuchus DNA. Give it its proper teeth, give it its lip structures, or its oral tissue, and you're going to remove the Albertosaur DNA because that's going to let it use its arms better. So yeah. If you would be a creator of Prehistoric Kingdom, what dinosaur would you add to the game? Nanooksaurus! Prehistoric Kingdom, if you're listening to me, please add my boy Nanooksaurus. I can get by just fine with, like, the small feathered T-Rex. Like, making one of the small T-Rexes, like, or making one of the feathered T-Rexes small, but please, give me my boy Nanook. Please, I beg you. Anyway. What is the strongest herbivore? Depends on what you're looking at. I'd say in terms of hadrosaurs, Shantungosaurus, Ceratopsids, probably Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, Thyreophorans specifically, you'd get like a Ankylosaurus, Stegosaurus, and like any Titanosaur or any sauropod over 20 tons. So you've got a lot of good contenders. What's my opinion on the Spinosaurus ring? Like the ringtone? I think it's okay. I think it's funny. I like seeing memes about it. What's your opinion on Natotyrannus genus? If you had been here months ago, right? Like way before October 30th, I would have told you Nanotyrannus isn't real. It's a juvenile T-Rex. There's no way it's real. If it's real, I'll deep fry and eat my left boot. But I can't say that anymore. Why? Because not only did they validate it, they brought a second one. There's two of them now. Why are there two of them? Not only that, hold on. There you go. There's me eating my boot. There. I took a very sizable bite out of my boot. I ate my own words and my boot. Anyway. I think it's really cool, though. Do you think dinosaurs would have eaten shrooms? Well, if you mean mushrooms, yes. There's a lot of animals today that eat stuff like that. So, and mushrooms, of course, fungus has been around for quite a while. So, yeah. Albertosaurus is the best mini T-Rex. Albertosaurus isn't a mini T-Rex. You want a mini T-Rex, you go take a look at Moros and Daspletosaurus. Very different in terms of size. But the reason I say that is because Albertosaurus, well, hold on. You did say Alberto? Yes. Albertosaurus is actually in its own little subfamily called the Albertosauridae. It is in there with its closest relative, Gorgosaurus. Albertosaurids, or Albertosaurinae and Tyrannosaurinae are notably different. And the most distinguishing factor between them is that Albertosaurinae have a lighter build. Their skulls, I think, are smaller. And they have longer legs. So these guys are the sports cars of the Tyrannosaur family. So yeah, they're their own very cool, unique thing. They are very, very cool. Yeah. How do I file taxes? Hey, you're coming to the wrong person. Dinosaurs don't pay taxes. I can't offer you help. Kings, can Spiny the Spinosaurus from Dinosaur King survive against the real Therizinosaurus? Yes, because the real Therizinosaurus's claws were not as strong as you think they are. There was like some scanning done on like the density of Therizinosaurus's claws, and if they had used them in like very aggressive and powerful manners, like you see it depicted in like a lot of media, it's probably not keeping those claws for long. So yeah. Say the longest dinosaur name. Micropachycephalosaurus. The shortest dinosaur name is Yi. How would Duonicus defend themselves even though it had 2 claws? I don't know, because like here's the thing about like what I was saying earlier about Therizinosaurus itself is that Therizinosaurus is their claws probably weren't great for defense. So in the case of Duonicus, Tarbosaurus pulls up on Duonicus. Guess I'll die. So yeah. Do I like Carnotaurus? Yes. Carnotaurus is very, very cool. What you think of Cryolophosaurus? I think I spelled that right. Cryolophosaurus is very cool. It is the largest carnivorous, largest theropod from Antarctica. It is sometimes called Elvosaurus because it has a crest on the middle of its face that like sticks up like a pompadour, as that one person in Jurassic Park, The Lost World said. So yeah, Cryo's very cool. I think Cryo's very cool. Do I like Spinosaurus? Yes, Spinosaurus is very cool. Talk about Megaraptors. Megaraptors are really cool. They're also terrifying. They're the only family of dinosaurs where I think both the smallest and largest member would probably bother with hunting something our size, our as in human size. Let me tell you, man, these things are terrifying. If you've ever wondered, I wonder what T-Rex would have been like if they had bigger arms. You'd get a Megaraptor. That's what you would get. Now, to understand what that means, you have to understand that T-Rex put a lot of large theropods put a lot of energy into getting really big heads and using their like heads as like their main way of interacting with the world. So Megaraptors, on the other hand, didn't do that and kept their gigantic arms, and they had a smaller head. Megaraptors, fascinatingly, are able to almost pronate their wrist fully. And the reason they can probably do that is because they're using their arms a lot while hunting. And I think that's horrifying. That's scary. I don't like that. I got a Megaraptor claw for Christmas. I'm good. I'm so good. No thanks. I'm good. That thing is huge. It's like a, what is it? Like a foot? Yeah, it's like a foot long if you're measuring with the curve. So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Now talk about Ionosaurus. Yes, actually, because Ionosaurus is proof that a lot of dinosaurs that have weapons probably did not develop those weapons as weapons. Ionosaurus is a ceratopsid. It is a centrosaurian ceratopsid that has a horn that curves straight down. Like it curves along the line of its like it curves down towards its mouth and its beak, and it's super weird. The thing about that is that kind of shows that they were probably that something like that happened more than likely because of selection, of just like species selection. It wasn't just like, or the preference of what's the word? Just the preference of the population, right? Like, let's say you're like an Ionosaurus. You're like, I love a horn that's just like straight down. And then, well, that trait is probably more than likely going to show up a lot more often, and then eventually everyone's got a horn that goes straight down. So yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. We're at the Natural History Museum. Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, talk about Gorgosaurus, and do you have a Gorgosaurus avatar? I have a Gorgosaurus avatar. It's very. Oh no, I don't. I have an Albertosaurus avatar though. I haven't used it in forever, but yeah, I've got this one. This one's like really good. I wish it had like lips, but I do really like this avatar. But Gorgosaurus is very cool. It's a close cousin of Albertosaurus. Funnily enough, my favorite dinosaur of all time, Dinosaurus, was originally mistaken as Gorgosaurus. And also, if you're a fan of Gorgosaurus from the Walking with Dinosaurs movie, that's not Gorgosaurus. That's Nanooksaurus. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. I mean, like, yeah, it's still modeled after Gorgosaurus, but still. Yeah, Gorgo's really cool. It's the other member of the Albertosaurinae, which we were talking about earlier. So yeah. Favorite dinosaur conspiracy theory. I don't think there is like a mainline dinosaur conspiracy theory that I subscribe to. The notion that T-Rex had wings is absurd. The idea that dinosaurs are dragons is idiotic. But if there was any conspiracy theory that I would believe, it is that... Okay, context. There is the largest theropod to walk across Europe was Torvosaurus gurnii. Torvosaurus gurnii is a Jurassic theropod and is the largest theropod to walk around in Europe. My theory is that there was probably a larger theropod that existed in Europe. However, I think the fossils of it either didn't survive into the modern day, or what fossils of it did survive into the modern day got destroyed in the Middle Ages because someone thought it was a dragon and like they put it in a tower or something and the tower got destroyed. I'm not going to pretend like I know European medieval history, but like if there was any idea that like is way out there that I would believe, it would be that. Yeah. Talk about the inland seaway known as Hell's Aquarium. Tylosaurus is my favorite. Tylosaurus is awesome. It's also my favorite. Love Tylosaurus. Hell's Aquarium, or the Western Interior Seaway, is this giant seaway that split North America in half during the late Cretaceous. The seaway extended all the way from Gulf of Mexico up to the Canadian-Alaskan border, and it split North America into two distinct landmasses. You had Laramidia to the west, Appalachia to the east. So, yeah, it's very cool. It had a ton of giant plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, ammonites, sharks. Very diverse place. Very cool. Yeah, how accurate is the Jurassic World Rebirth Spinosaurus? The neck needs to be longer. It could probably do with some lips. The back legs might be worth extending those a little bit in terms of height. Depiction of it swimming is at least controversial, so we'll see how that goes in that debate. But other than that, oh yeah, it needs its crest, and why is its skull shaped that way? Anyway, also, did you guys notice how big their ears were? All right, no, hold on, real quick. Go back and look at the Jurassic World Rebirth Spinosaurus. Go look at how big their ears are. What's going on? Anyway, might not mention we did talk about Megaraptors in general, but Mipe, or the shadow of death who kills with the cold wind, that is the largest of them. The species name is Macrothorax, which basically just means big chest. So yeah. About Gorgosaurus, was it joy? Just stop talking. Sorry, we were talking about Gorgosaurus, very briefly, but it's an American tyrannosaur belonging to the subgroup of Albertosaurinae. It would have lived to see a lot of other dinosaurs like Edmontosaurus, Pachyrhinosaurus, and stuff like that. Very cool dinosaur, in my opinion. I'm currently dressed as a Albertosaurus, but this is probably the closest we're getting to a Gorgosaurus. I do believe, yeah, I can turn the Albertosaurus female. Wait, this thing has roars? Hold on, I'm gonna put the blue back on. What's the roar? Whoa, that's cool. I like that. Very cool. But yeah. Do I like Dino Blade? I played Dino Blade on stream. Let me tell you, I do not play Souls-like games. Anyone who watched that stream will tell you that. I am much more of like a role-play RPG shooter kind of guy. I've been playing a lot of Mass Effect recently. I'm also finding myself playing a lot of Stellaris recently, and I'm wondering if those two things are connected. What is the greatest dinosaur movie ever made? Oh, man. Greatest dinosaur movie ever made. I won't be nostalgia baited into saying Land Before Time, because I did not watch Land Before Time growing up. That was before my time. I think the original Jurassic Park is really, really good, but I also really like the Walking with Dinosaurs movie, with or without the like characters talking. I think the Walking with Dinosaurs movie from like 2013 was like really well animated. That movie still holds up really well today. So yeah. Could mosasaurs move to shallow freshwater like crocs, or were they exclusively oceanic? That is a great question, because guess what? We have evidence of a freshwater mosasaur in the Hell Creek Formation, I want to say. There was a paper that came out not too long ago, I think like literally just a month ago, or probably a few weeks ago. Or no, it was before New Year's. But there was a paper that came out that basically was like, hey, we found evidence of a prognathodon, which is a type of mosasaur relative, sitting in freshwater areas of the Hell Creek Formation. So, yeah, mosasaurs can go into freshwater, and it's really neat. Is Mipe a real-life Indoraptor? I mean, if you were going to switch it with anything IRL, then yeah, I'd probably say Mipe, or realistically any Megaraptor that's, like, bigger than a person. Would Nanooksaurus have been more feathery or fluffy? Hard to say. If you want an idea of what Nanooksaurus's plumage might have been, because we don't know if Nanooksaurus had plumage or not. That's like, just by and large, we don't know. But if you want an idea of what it could have looked like if it did have plumage, go look at Eutyrannus. Eutyrannus is a great one because Eutyrannus is a tyrannosauroid, so it belongs to the same superfamily. So yeah, it's a great comparison. Okay. Let's see. Have I played Path of Titans? Yes, I love Path of Titans. Can you talk about the Russian Tyrannosaur that lived with Allura Titan? I don't know if that's been formally described yet. So I'm going to not do that because I'm pretty sure it hasn't been given a name and the paper isn't out yet, and I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I know Vivid in Paleontology Evolved talked about it. But Vivid in Paleontology Evolved is like a paleontologist and is working with people doing this. So I am just going to say, hey, if you want to hear about that, go look at the Vivid in Paleontology Evolved video on it. Go take a look at their YouTube channel. So yeah. How valid is a Troceraptor? Last I checked, it's still valid. If there's anything happening with its validity, I've either forgotten about it or haven't heard anything about it. But you know what? I'll look into that after stream. Yeah. T-Rex had downing feathers when they were little, but when they were grown, it had none. We don't know. That's just plain and simple. Because while we do have skin impressions of T-Rex, the kinds of sediment that those were preserved in would not have preserved plumage either way. If they did have downing-like feathers, it would be while they were juveniles. Whether or not they lost most of that or lost all of it by the time they were adults may or may not be the case. I know it's the, like, common accepted case for the time being, but we're not entirely sure, to be completely honest with you. But yeah. They wouldn't be able to roar. That is very, very, very true. Dinosaurs probably didn't roar. They'd let out very loud bellows, growls, hisses, and like they could do things that are roar adjacent that sound very threatening, but something like a lion's roar or a tiger's roar would not be possible. Don't you just love commercial paleontologists? No, I hate them. With a passion. You can't see it, but I am smiling because I hate them. Anyway, out of all of the T-Rex from movies, who is the best in your opinion? I don't know. Out of named T-Rexes, I don't know. I'll probably say Ember from Rebirth. A little big, but chunky, and I like that. Out of unnamed ones, I'll probably say the T-Rex from the movie, well, T-Rex, that was in, like, museums and stuff like that. Have you read Dinosaur Sanctuary? I recently got the first volume and I'm loving it. Yes, I have. You know why? Because I was the one that made the video talking about Dinosaur Sanctuary that blew up on TikTok and Instagram. That I really hope it gets an anime adaptation. I know I mostly talk about like dinosaurs and stuff like that, but I also am like really like anime and like astronomy and stuff like that. So if it gets an anime, I'm watching it. I will also, by the time if it does get announced, to getting an adaptation, I will make another video on it, and I'll also, if a studio picks it up, I'll be able to tell you the specific studio and whether or not they're going to do a good job on it, because you can usually tell if a studio is going to do good or not based off of their past anime adaptations. So we will see. It would be really funny if Studio Trigger picked it up, because Studio Trigger makes some insane animes. like they're really well animated. But God, their storylines, it's like you're doing the same storyline 3 times in a row here now, Trigger. What's going on, buddy? Anyway. What did you think of the dinosaur movie Disney did? I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Can we get more water dinosaurs, please? Well, there are no water dinosaurs aside from penguins. Hey, actually, wait. Well, penguins, waterfowl, ducks, geese, Spinosaurs, stuff like that. The other stuff are marine reptiles. They're their own weird, unique things. By the way, what's going on with the penguin edits? Has anyone else noticed this? What's going on with the penguin edits? Because, like, I've seen the clip from the documentary, and I don't understand how people are getting motivation from that. Is it, yeah. Okay, some of you have seen it. It's like, how are you getting motivation from, like, what is very clearly a willful choice from that penguin to just keel over? Right? Like, what's going on? I'm so confused. Anyway. Yeah, I don't get it. Any creatures aside from non-avian dinosaurs you are happy are gone. Well, I mean, I'm not particularly happy that any of them are gone, because I would give anything to see any of them alive. But I guess if I had to choose, maybe entelodons or entelodontids, stuff like that, like things like Daeodon, the hell pig, essentially. Very weird animal. Also, like, freaky. Just a freaky animal. But yeah. Would you be afraid of having the Mypodon, Mype, and a Mutodon? I don't do hybrids in general, but I'll tell you this. I don't get why people think that if dinosaurs came back, we would be in any danger. We wouldn't. You know why? It's this little rock that we shoot at like 500 miles an hour. It tends to do really well against biological material. Anyway, but like, thoughts on Eutyrannus? We were talking about Eutyrannus a little bit before, and how like Nanooksaurus would probably have similar plumage to Eutyrannus's if it did indeed have Eutyrannus, but Eutyrannus is very cool. There's this notion that Eutyrannus was maybe a pack hunter. We don't know that for certain. I know that like the 3 specimens of Eutyrannus were found in the same quarry, but we're not sure if they were found in the same place, because they came from a fossil dealer and not like any paleontologist who documented their placement before they were pulled out of the ground. So, you know, that's unfortunate. Like, that's unfortunate. But learn about iguanodon. Iguanodons are really interesting, and I think it's really interesting to look at how we've reconstructed iguanodon in the past, because it's probably had one of the second most drastic changes, second only to Megalosaurus. If you've seen like the Crystal Palace Megalosaurus statue, you know how bad that was. Iguanodon, on the other hand, Iguanodon was named Iguanodon because it has a very iguana-like tooth structure. Their teeth are very similar to iguanas. But they would have lived in the early Cretaceous of what is now Europe. Very interesting. We used to think their thumb spikes were nasal horns. So that's interesting. One thing that a lot of people assume about Iguanodon that may or may not be true is that, and like I'm guilty of saying this as a joke, but like people will say, "Oh, Iguanodon, the Mike Tyson of dinosaurs, it's just throwing haymakers." It's probably not doing that to its own kind, or not its own. Sorry, it's probably not doing that to a predator, but it would probably do it to its own kind. You see that, like, in a lot of dinosaurs, this development of, like, things that are seemingly weapons are typically used against other members of their own species more than they are against predators. So Iguanodon could have been throwing haymakers, but it would have been at another Iguanodon. And, like, to give a reference as to why, like, their head... right? Like, in order to get an effective, like, thumb spike gouge into, like, a predator, they would have to put their face directly where their predator's face is. And that's a very risky move. So, yeah. I like Eutyrannus, but I feel like lately it got so popularized and now everybody talks about it. Well, it's a really cool dinosaur. So, yeah. I don't blame people for thinking that. What about Megalania? Megalania is not a dinosaur. It is a squamite because it is a lizard. It is actually not even known as Megalania scientifically anymore. Megalania is its common name, similar to how the Komodo dragon is not scientifically known as the Komodo dragon. Megalania is now known as Varanus priscus because it was found to be so closely related to the modern Komodo dragon and its genus of Varanus that it is now seen as within the same genus but a different species. Very cool. Probably had venom too, though. You know, venom feels like overcompensating because you know it's a lizard the size of a small car. But you know, okay, so. We are going to end class here because we've hit our usual mark of about an hour and 20 minutes, which is usually how long I like to keep these classes going. And also, I think the winter storm's about to start picking up more. So, hey, look, I timed class pretty well today, and I'm happy for that. If you asked a question and I did not get to it, I do apologize because I am only human. I know I look like an Albertosaurus, but I am human underneath all of this. And, you know, I can only really get to as many people as I can while we're live. But if you would like to join our community Discord and ask me questions in the Lakota Questions channel, feel free. And you can also ask questions in the comment section of any of my recent videos. So real quick, I did want to talk about this as well to those of you who are still hanging out. You might not see a lot of streams and you might not see a lot of videos from me in the next couple of weeks. I'm gonna take a step back from doing content for a while, just because I don't know, need a little break, and I'll get back around to it. You can still hopefully expect me over on the Paleopod, which is my podcast with Dino Guy and Paleo Pizza. So, yeah, make sure to keep up with that. Otherwise, thank you everyone who hung out with us today in stream. Thank you everyone who liked, commented, shared, followed, and all that good stuff. You guys are awesome, and these streams are absolutely nothing without you guys. And of course, thank you to everyone who gifted. You guys are awesome. Thank you so very much. And with all that being said and done, I hope you guys have a great rest of y'all's day, a great next week. And to those of you who, like me, are in the pathway of a large winter storm right now, be safe, please. Be safe. Remember to leave your taps running, so your pipes don't freeze, and keep your heaters on. Maybe get a backup generator if you can. Anyway, with all that being said and done, I'll catch you guys later. Bye bye, and thank you, buddy. Thank you, Bunny Baby, for the dinosaur. I appreciate it. Right at the end there. Y'all have a good one. I'll catch y'all later. Bye bye.